kind of do my analysis on my level. I don't write out a 20-page business plan.
Right.
I just don't find value in that because I've tried it and I never follow it. I need something like a to-do list, and before I actually do the stuff on the list, I would go and figure out how much it's going to cost, what do I need to make, what am I going to pay people, and I kind of do my own little thing, and then I figure out, and that was my risk. And I was like, yeah, we can do this. I had 2 techs already that wanted to open the store, and you know, it didn't cost me a lot to get the store open, but it turned out that the store needed a lot of work and a full overhaul, so that really delayed us from opening. So,
no, how many? So you had 2 places already.
Yes.
And you wanted to open a 3rd place. How many employees did you have at the time?
1, 2. I think I had 2, 1 for each store, and then the 3rd one brought on 2 more techs.
Oh, okay, 2 new techs.
So it was me kind of managing all 3 stores, and then each store had a tech, and the 3rd one had 2 techs.
How did you find these 2 techs?
Well, one of them came on with me in the 2nd store to be a Macintosh tech.
Okay.
And he was driving once a week over because he really wanted experience.
Yeah.
And then that's where I went to college at that town. So I knew him from college. So he was like, have you thought about opening a store there sooner than you wanted to? And I was like, well, I could, you know, it's not very expensive to do it on the, you know, not like with the huge expenses of build the suite or build the suit and all that. So, I mean, it didn't cost me more than $1,000 to probably open a store.
Damn, that's pretty good.
With banners and all that. But yeah, it was just a lot of work.
Right.
Marketing, getting people there, you know, setting up stuff. It was a lot more work than I thought.
Okay.
Totally, yeah. So
what was the risk in this 3rd store?
The risk was just kind of going into an unknown market, and I checked my competition, and I thought we'd do really well. And I think what won it was once we got into the press there, because we were the only shop in town that did Macintoshes.
And that made it into the press? How did that happen?
Front page, too.
How?
I called them.
Oh, things don't just automatically go into the press. I want people to know that.
I called them, yeah. I said, hey, we're opening a Macintosh PC repair store on Main Street in a vintage building. And they love that because they're all about historic there. So they were like, yeah, we'll be down in like 10 minutes. So then they did this interview and took pictures, and they put us on the front page. And after that, it was like super busy. Wow. It was a town of about 15,000, 20,000 people.
That's awesome.
So it's kind of like you have to have a nook, you know, to get the press excited. And then we paid for ads with them because they're the only paper that was big. So,
Very cool.
But then things stabilize and slow down. So then you have to put money into more marketing. In a small town, you're kind of like, where else do you do stuff, you know? I was kind of losing ideas.
I see. You're like, we did the paper, and we did the paper, and...
Well, then I did radio.
Okay.
And radio takes like twice as long, I think. We did radio ads. I got in the weather spot. And the weather spot's good. It's 8 times a day, something like that.
Sweet. Now, did you provide them what you wanted them to say, or?
Yep. It was a good spot.
Cool. That's great. Expensive?
No, because I did some other stuff with them that, like they sold tune-ups and stuff at their shopping shows and things like that.
Cool.
So they get the money for that, and then I got a good deal on the weather. Worked.
Very cool.
That was cool. Let's see what else on my list here. So after the 3rd store, it was right after that I started working on this big contract. And I don't want to announce anything about the contract, Steve, so I'll just call it the contract.
Okay. I'm sure you won't let anything slip, like anybody's name or anything.
Not this time. No. I can't yet. But we landed a really big contract, and just right after I opened the 3rd store, this is when the contract hit. And so we had to do a pilot program for this contract, and at the time it was just in such a baby phase, you know. We were doing services for some stores. And so all these things started hitting at once, and this contract I got was an idea I came up with almost 2 years before that. So it was an idea that sat for 2 years, like in my brain, you know, till finally I came up with the plan to approach and make it happen.
Okay.
And, you know, as pilot programs go, you test it, you find failures, you debug it, you know, you get it smooth, and then I landed 23 stores.
Now, when you say 23 stores, what do you mean?
23 stores to service computers at these stores.
They're in-house computers.
Pretty much, yeah.
Remotely or on site or?
No, on site only.
Okay.
So it started off with just a couple, 3 stores, and then it moved in, and then so this contract started growing. So this is how my business started to really start to expand, and all the problems started. Well, not problems, but just things happen. Growth.
Now I know you can't say anything about the contract, but you got to give us a little bit more about what your idea was. What kind of pilot program was it? What were you thinking of?
Oh, kitten. Sorry, cat.
Oh, the cat.
It was basically it's a retail store that has computers that needed servicing. So we go and service them.
And you just started going to these stores and doing one at a time, and then you had the bright idea to just do a bunch of them.
Well, it's a corporation, so I approached one just to see if they needed help.
I got you.
What I did was I went to one and said, "Hey, do you ever need help?" And they're like, "Yeah, we do." And I said, "Well, let's talk about how I can help." And remember, it's just me, just me then. And he was like, "Well, let's do this." And I said, "Okay, let's do this too." And next thing I know, I was like, "Wow, that sounds like a good deal. Let's do it for X amount of dollars per computer." And they were like, "Okay." And then they said, "We have to talk to corporate." And then I was like, "Okay." And I didn't hear back from them for like 6 weeks, so I figured they didn't want to bite. And then they bit, and as soon as I hired my full-time guy was when we started doing it. So I'd already been working on this contract before the intern came on.
I see.
Yeah, so then by the time the third store came open, we'd already been doing, I think, 4 of the stores.
I see. Okay.
And there's in 4 states, so I had a long way to go before I had all the stores done.
Wow.
It's a huge one. Yeah, it's a lot of work. So remember, going back to the fourth risk was like this contract was starting to grow. So I was like, okay, we have a lot of work ahead of us. And everybody was still a contract at this point. Nobody was employees because they were still just doing contractor work.
Okay.
So, and I mean, I couldn't just say, hey, here's a project. They were only there to be techs. So,
okay. So what did you do?
I was still doing all the work myself for the whole company outside of the tech work. Okay, so then I decided to put everybody in payroll, like after 3 months or something. And payroll was a lot of work to move 4 people to. I did not realize what it's like to put payroll on. Have you ever had anybody on payroll?
No.
Yeah.
Not good?
There's a lot of stuff you have to do. Well, outside of just hiring, which I already had the staff, I didn't have to deal with that. There's like, you have employees have problems, and then you have to manage all the changes with the problems. They want vacation time, health, sick pay. Then you have to hire someone to do the payroll, employee files, HR, forms, unemployment, quarterly tax, workers' comp. I mean, my liability insurance went up, and it's just like, oh my God, this was not what I expected.
Right.
It's owning a business. And I think I spent the whole summer hammering out every single form the government ever needed.
Oh, man.
And you know what? This was not the dream, Steve. The dream was, I think back when I was thinking of, oh man, someday I'd love to have this huge business, be a millionaire. I was like, here I am doing endless paperwork and junk like that, and it sucked. It was not fun.
That's so discouraging. It's so discouraging. Yeah. Especially for like entrepreneurs and small business owners, knowing that that's what they have to put up with. It's not good. It's kind of
like being a teenager. At the time when you hate being a teenager, because you have to suffer through it, and it does get better because the more money you make, you can hire people to do that stuff.
Of course, yeah.
That's what I did.
You got an accountant?
I have a tax accountant, and I have a bookkeeper and a lawyer.
Wow.
Those are like just the 3 guns I have on the side, and then outside of that, we have contractors too for other things.
Now, how did you get those guys?
Contractors?
No, your attorney and tax guy and your lawyer. Did you just look them up in the phone book, or?
No, my lawyer I got off LinkedIn.
Okay.
Of course, it's like my yellow book, and my tax accountant was my neighbor in my office in Minneapolis, and my bookkeeper is my dog's boarding his wife.
Aha.
So I don't want to say the name loud; he'll bark.
I got you.
So anyway, yeah, it's their his wife. So, and she's great.
So you knew some people. You knew some people and used your connections. Okay.
Yeah, I kind of spread my company out a little bit by using people I already knew, and I didn't have to go find new people. It was nice.
Very cool.
But like I said, hiring all these people and all that growth, I don't even think I made it through the summer, like with one day of not being angry at another form or something I had to do.
Right.
It's horrible. And then seeing all these bills start to come. And I know that people say, you never want to grow. Who wants employees? All that. I'm like, well, unless you want to stay small and not ever get somewhere with your company. Yeah.
It's true. You got to go through it. So what was the end result? Did you got through all the paperwork, things got better, and it's cool now? Or
yeah. I mean, everything's mellowed out. Everybody's got their jobs in order. I mean, for the side, the accounting and all that stuff, everybody does what, the bookkeeper just does the time cards now. I don't even deal with it. I hated dealing with time cards.
Yeah.
It was horrible.
So boring, that stuff.
I know.
So what do you recommend for somebody who wants to start putting people on payroll? What's your tips?
Well, you know what the tips are is everything I just kind of rattled off is you have to get these things in place. The system's in place to make it go. So before you hire someone, you might want to go check out your unemployment insurance and what you're going to be paying. Even with one person, you have to pay. Your workers' comp is going to be probably not much. I mean, $50, maybe 30 a month, and nothing like that big.
Okay.
Make sure you talk to the state and you get everything set up. I mean, it's a lot. I would just actually hire that out to somebody else. It's not going to cost you much.
Okay.
No.
So what kind of professional handles this kind of thing? Like what?
Bookkeeper?
Okay.
Bookkeepers, yeah. And if you're out if you're doing small business right now, you can go to like a local networking group and find a bookkeeper that's probably really affordable. That it would take them maybe an hour or two to do all of it. You pay them, whatever they charge, $100 for 2 hours, and just let them do it all.
That sounds good.
It's not worth the headache. And I didn't. I had someone else do it, but I still had to do a lot of the work.
Right.
Because I'd go online and find the form. And
I hate doing that.
No.
I've done it for other things, taxes and stuff, and it's just pain in the butt.
No, I don't even want to do any of that anymore. I've learned, Steve, I don't like doing it.
Yeah.
I'm not going to anymore. No.
That's good.
I'll make more money to not have to do it.
Right, because you'll be happier.
I know. That's how it is, too. I've learned. I had a suffering summer of pain, and last fall, too, kind of. So, because we're not done with the risks yet.
Okay.
There's more.
What's the next one?
The next one was kind of at that point when I started to have the employees and the growth and the contract was growing. I started to find more opportunities, which, of course, because you're already like, well, I already have everything in place. I can keep growing now, and why stop? Because I wasn't where I wanted to be financially. So I started adding on some new contractors. So I didn't promote that we did server work, but if someone called and they had a server, one of my techs knows server work, but I needed a professional server guy.
Okay.
So I decided to have that as an outsource for my company. And it's just called building relationships, I've learned a few things is I don't want to retain a contractor and bill under my company name. I've decided to solely let them bill the client. I'm going to do it as a free referral.
I see.
I'm giving away money, but to be honest with you, I've already had the headaches of problems with that already. So in the very few calls we get, I'm like, you know what, why don't you just take it and that's your client now for the server work, but I get the desktop.
I see.
So that we have a good understanding. I have a contractor right now. We have a nice agreement in place. And he doesn't do what I do, and he only does servers and no desktop. So
when somebody calls you for server work, it goes to the contractor, and then it becomes his customer. Yep. And if they have residential stuff, then they give it to you?
Well, let's say a company of like 20 people only had just like, let's say, one server. He could do the server work. We would do the desktop repair.
The desktops. I got you.
So it's a nice blend.
Sure.
Because the server guys don't really like walking through setting up Outlook and, setting up a new computer anyway.
Yeah, they're probably thrilled with it.
Mm-hmm. So we found one guy to partner with there. Then I started finding partnerships with other people.
Now, how do you find these guys? I keep asking you this because this is the questions I would ask if I was asking you for advice.
Well, this server guy happened to, he owns a company that my old neighbor used to own, and he sold it to the new guy I work with. So he was a neighbor, and then I got a new company I've been working with that does Google Apps and Act and QuickBook support.
Okay.
And the Google Apps stuff they do is pretty cool. I found them through a customer that called me with an Act problem, and we did a tune-up, and we needed the Act guy in there, so he came in and once I was like, "Do you do what we do?" And he said, "No." And I said, "We don't do what you do, so let's meet." And he was like, "Yeah, 'cause we could probably give each other a lot of work."
And what is ACT again? Is it accounting software or customer tracking?